Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Greetings and salam sejahtera again to all. I hope that all of you are fine so far, safe and doing well in your learning. The next lecture is about the evolution of learning theories. There has been an evolution in the nature and focus of learning theories. That is the focus of how people learn in the 20th century. This lecture aimed to compare the three learning theories, behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism perspective, so that you can clearly see the differences between these three learning theories. To recap, learning theories attempt to explain and describe how learning occurs. Learning theories allow teachers or instructional designers to better understand the process of learning. And together with the use of technology, learning theories have made a significant impact in instructional design. The theory of behaviorism originates from the work of Ivan Pavlov and B.F. Skinner's classical conditioning and operant conditioning, where the learner needs reinforcements to keep interest and the stimuli are effective in controlling behavior. As a result, the behaviors can be measured to record learning success. Moving on to cognitivism, information processing theory, or sometimes they also call it as information processing model, looks at how information is retrieved and stored. IPT, or information processing theory, focuses on how to store and retrieve information. This theory believes that learning is attained through rehearsal and consistent use of the information. And later, with the emergence of constructivism, constructivism views learning as a process in which the learner constructs knowledge based on their past experiences, based on their prior knowledge. The teacher only acts as a facilitator who encourages students to explore within a given framework. Normally, learners may collaborate with others to organize their ideas and learn from each other to construct their own knowledge. So this lecture will focus on the differences between these three learning theories. Behaviorism emphasizes the stimulus and response relationship and the need to tightly control the learning through pedagogies and technologies associated with instructional design. In contrast to behaviorism, cognitivism focuses on the idea that students process information they receive in their cognitive mind rather than just responding to a stimulus. And later, constructivism introduced a new perspective to the 20th century learning theory that view knowledge as constructed by the learner. Please refer to this article that presents a good explanation on the three distinct perspectives of the learning theories. I have also summarized the article and simplified the content into this table for your reading. So you can find both the article and the simplified table in Schoology. First, in terms of the theoretical perspective, in comparison, behaviorism views people as controlled by their environment and specifically that we are the result of what we have learned from our environment. Behaviorism is concerned with how stimuli will affect the observable behavior, that is the response. On the other hand, cognitivism studies the mental act or process by which knowledge is acquired. It concerns with mental functions such as memory, perception, attention, and others. On the other hand, constructivism sees that learners actively construct their own knowledge and meaning from their experiences by perceiving various things around them and making sense out of those objects in particular learning situation. So, we can conclude that from the theoretical perspective viewpoint of behaviorism, it is based on the observable changes in behavior. Therefore, behaviorism focuses on a new behavioral pattern being repeated until it becomes automatic. On the other hand, in terms of the theoretical perspective viewpoint of cognitivism, it is based on thought processes behind that particular behavior. So cognitivism focuses in the changes in behavior that are observable, and it uses that as indicators as to what is actually happening inside the learner's mind. And in terms of the theoretical perspective viewpoint of constructivism, it is based on the premise that we all construct our own perspective of the world through our individual experiences. Therefore, constructivism focuses on preparing the learner to solve problems in ambiguous situations. Next, what this theory believes towards the mind? Behaviorism believes that mind is like a black box. What happened within is not concerned by the behaviorist. Therefore, the role of memory is not yet addressed by the behaviorists in that era. On the other hand, cognitivism believes that mind is like a computer. The process happens should be understood to know how our minds work in storing and retrieving memory. Therefore, cognitivism believes that memory is where we store and organize information for future retrieving of that particular information. Meanwhile, constructivism believes that memory is always under construction, as learners always interact with their surroundings and acquire new insights. They might amend and correct their previous memory of knowledge if they encounter new perspectives. Therefore, behaviorism believes that mind is predictable, and they assume that all students are the same. They believe that learning happens when there are changes of behavior that are not due to growth. On the other hand, although cognitivism also believes that mind is predictable and relate mind as a computer, they assume that no students are the same because students' capability to process and store information in their cognitive that involve the short-term memory and long-term memory might be different. And they believe that learning happens when there are changes in students' or learners' capabilities, attitudes, or knowledge structures. And later on, constructivism believes that mind is not predictable, which is actually contradict from behaviorism and cognitivism. Constructivism believes that the mind develops through specific stages or levels that is due to growth. Constructivism also believes and assumes that no students are the same, and they believe that learning happens when there are changes in thinking levels and changes in types and quality of thinking within each level. Another point is that another term that is popularly used to represent constructivism is actually theory of mental development. Apart from that, how does learning occur from the three different viewpoints of these learning theories? From the viewpoint of behaviorism, learning and behavior changes are acquired by linking stimuli and response. On the other hand, from the point of view of cognitivism, learning is internal and is the result of a student processing and organizing new information. Whereas for the constructivism, knowledge is constructed by adapting new information based on previous experience. Repeating more or less the same point, according to behaviorism, learning occurs as there is a change in behavior. Therefore, behaviorism believes that when there is a stimulus, learners should pick the correct response. From the point of view of cognitivism, learning occurs as there is a change in knowledge, and learners are aware of what they know and how they acquire that particular knowledge. Whereas for the constructivism, they believe that learning occurs when there is a creation of meaning from experiences. Learners change their knowledge structure from time to time as they interact with people and environment. The knowledge acquired is not fixed, and there is a chance that learners will extensively adding meaning to that particular knowledge. Next, in terms of the metaphors of the mind, behaviorism view mind as a brain, MAB, mind as a brain. On the other hand, cognitivism view mind as a computer, MAC, mind as a computer. But constructivism view mind as a rhizome, meaning that as a continuously growing and expanding mind. Next, moving on to how these three learning theories believe towards knowledge, behaviorism and cognitivism share the same belief that knowledge is definite or certain and that knowledge needs to be passed down. Therefore, both behaviorism and cognitivism focus on teaching processes. That is what we normally call is as teacher-centered teaching and learning approach. But on the other hand, constructivism believes that knowledge is product of own construction, where learners construct their own understanding. Therefore, constructivism focuses more on learners and their learning experiences. And this approach, we normally call it as student-centered learning approach. In the behaviorism viewpoint, teachers are the authoritative figure. Therefore, teachers normally pass down the knowledge. On the other hand, from the point of view of cognitivism, knowledge is learned from the perspective of product of learning, where learners normally recall knowledge. But from the point of view of constructivism that believes strongly in student-centered learning approach, teachers normally act as facilitators. Knowledge is constructed by learners themselves, and knowledge is learned from the perspective of process of learning. And normally, learners will explore that particular knowledge. Next, what are the comparison in terms of the target learning outcome between these three learning theories. Behaviorism aims for the change in behavior, including the mastery of content or skills, where learners should master or at least enhance the skills or contents by choosing the correct response. On the other hand, cognitivism aims for the change in mental, the change in the way students process the information and store the information in their mind. Similar to behaviorism, cognitivism also aims for the mastery of content or skills, where learners should master or at least enhance the skills or contents. On the other hand, constructivism aims for the change in mental. However, in constructivism perspective, it focuses on the dynamic change in mental. Therefore, the motto of constructivism learning theory is learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. Memory is always under construction from the point of view of constructivism, as learners always interact with their surroundings and acquire new insights. They might amend and correct their previous memory of knowledge if they encounter new perspectives. Therefore, when learners learn new knowledge, they will unlearn the old previous knowledge and later keep on relearning new additional knowledge. Therefore, to unlearn, to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn, this process is what we call as the lifelong learning. Constructivism also aims for reasoning skills and science process skills, and also enhance thinking skills and inventiveness, where learners should improve their critical thinking skills in that particular field. Next, in terms of the application of the learning theory, that refers to the strategies to apply, behaviorism and cognitivism focus more on teaching, whereas constructivism focus more on learning. Therefore, behaviorism and cognitivism always apply the teaching-centered approach, whereas constructivism always apply the student-centered approach. Among the examples of the application of the behaviorism learning theory are use authority and control, for example, in the training program, face-to-face lecture, computer games in stimulus and response format with minimal thinking, and also including tutorials in information presentation format. Whereas among the examples of the application of the cognitivism learning theory are through lecture that involve drills or repetition that encourage memorization, through practice that require the learners to learn, apply, and transfer that particular knowledge, online games and reinforcement activities such as sorting games, puzzles, and flashcards, simulation, concept mapping, and advanced organizers. On the other hand, among the examples of the application of the constructivism learning theory are discovery learning or inquiry teaching, problem-based learning, project-based learning, cooperative learning, collaborative learning, situational learning, case or scenario-based learning. How does these three learning theories operate? Behaviorism operates through conditioning and use of extrinsic motivational processes, whereas cognitivism operates through activation of mental processes. And constructivism, on the other hand, operates through active learning that involve inquiry and solving real-life problems, including through meaningful and purposeful learning, and in other situations, maybe through scaffolding, cooperative or collaborative learning that involve social learning. So how does these theories change students? Behaviorism change students' behavior. Cognitivism change students' capabilities, attitudes, knowledge structures, or the redefining of their prior knowledge. Constructivism change students' thinking and levels of thinking, normally what we call as higher order thinking skills or KEBAT, kemahiran berfikir aras tinggi. In terms of the contribution of the outcome of these theories to the world, those who strongly believe in behaviorism and cognitivism, they accept knowledge as it is and manage that knowledge. But constructivism, they are different. Those who believe in constructivism, they learn to modify that knowledge, improve that knowledge, or change or invent new knowledge. Next, how does the role of memory differ between these three learning theories? In behaviorism, the role of memory is not addressed, whereas in cognitivism, memory is treated as a computer where information is stored in memory in an organized, meaningful manner, which will result in learning. And according to constructivism, memory is always under construction because the goal of instruction is not to ensure that individuals know particular facts, but rather that they elaborate on and interpret information. I don't know whether you notice or not that I design my assignments according to constructivism approach, where you have to elaborate on and interpret information given, because I strongly believe in constructivism learning approach. In terms of the role of learners, students from the behaviorism approach are normally passive learners, where they act as knowledge receiver. They normally recognize stimulus and choose the right response. Similar to behaviorism, cognitivism students are also passive learners, but they are active in processing information in their mind, where they construct mental structures based on what is given to them by teachers. On the other hand, students from the constructivism point of view are actually active learners, where they explore and discover knowledge based on everyday experiences, as well as through interaction with more knowledgeable other MKO, those who know more than them. In terms of the role of teachers, teachers in behaviorism approach are normally authoritative figure where teachers should not be challenged, and normally teachers provide knowledge to learners and control environments and stimuli. On the other hand, teachers under the cognitivism approach normally apply cognitive principles or cognitive strategies to facilitate cognitive process. However, teachers from the constructivism point of view, they rarely provide knowledge to learners. They do not focus on only providing knowledge to learners, but they normally act as facilitator, as a guider, as a supporter, where they support meaning making and challenge existing ideas. In terms of the teaching formula, The formula under the behaviorism is to provide stimulus for learners to choose the correct response and adding on reinforcement, where reinforcement is given to either strengthen or weaken the response. Next, for the cognitivism teaching formula, because cognitivism focuses more on the product of learning, so the formula is start with term introduction, followed by concept formation, and finally exploration. Whereas for constructivism, they focus more on the process of learning, what happened in between. Therefore, the formula is to start with first exploration, followed by concept formation, and finally only term introduction. Moving on to the application of the learning theories, in behaviorism, what you can do is that first identify desired behaviors to be learned, followed by decide on reinforcements or consequences for learners, for example, that involve reward and punishment. So as the outcome, learners instill the correct behaviors or master the correct contents. For cognitivism, first, you can identify desired skills to be known by learners, and followed by decide on learning strategies, for example, using mnemonic device, visual aid, concept mapping, or advanced organizers. As the outcome, learners are able to understand, retain, and recall that knowledge. And for the constructivism, first, you can decide on how to actively engage with learners. Second, you can plan activities that help learners answer the problem. And third, learners are asked to present the outcome in any form, for example, using presentation, exhibition, or others. As the outcome, learners are able to solve problems, they become problem solver, and they able to acquire higher order thinking skills and also do collaborative work. Other strategies or possible learning activities under behaviorism are using comprehension checks, drilling, and repetition. Under cognitivism, using analogy, metaphor, concept mapping, or even mnemonic. And under constructivism, using collaborative learning that encourage application of new knowledge in a variety of situations. In terms of the implication to teaching and learning, in behaviorism, instruction is structured by showing the stimulus under controlled environments. Cues are shown to learners to aid them in recognizing pattern and thus selecting the correct response. Whereas for cognitivism, in cognitivism, instruction is designed based on learners' existing mental structures. Information should be organized in a way that helps learners to connect new information with their existing prior knowledge. Whereas for the in constructivism, instruction should be designed in a way to show learners how to construct knowledge. Instruction should include collaborative work to allow learners work in different environments and also gain insights from perspectives of different people. Therefore, in behaviorism, they should apply repeating of practices that will further strengthen by reinforcement. For example, through drilling and practice, mastery lecture, or smaller tasks that lead to learning goal. Other examples of the implication to teaching and learning for cognitivism are knowledge is divided into small chunks, chunking, use concept mapping and also use simulations, whereas other examples for constructivism are problem-based solving, cooperative learning groups, debates, reflective discussion, peer practice or peer interaction, inquiry-based learning, online collaborative learning, or normally we call as CSCL, computer supported collaborative learning, or even communities of practice. And finally, these are the popular theories. Theorists who propose behaviorism are Pavlov, Thorndike, Watson, and Skinner. Theorists who are popular and propose cognitivism are George Miller, John Sweller, and Robert Garney. And finally, theories who are popular under constructivism are John Dewey, John Piaget, Jerome Bruner, and also Lev Vygotsky. So after you have already learned the three learning theories, now you decide, which one are you? Are you a behaviorist, or cognitivist, or constructivist? Which one do you prefer? How teaching is to be presented in your future classroom or training? Of these many three learning theories, which should actually receive the attention of the instructional designer? And the most important question is that, is it better to choose one theory when designing instruction, or to draw ideas from different theories? To find the answer, you can read this article, Behaviorism, Cognitivism, Constructivism, Comparing Critical Features from an Instructional Design Perspective. In order to answer, is there a single best approach and is one approach more efficient than the others? Please read this article starting from page 60. The critical question instructional designers must ask is not which is the best theory, but which theory is the most effective in fostering mastery of specific tasks by specific learners. Please note that in selecting the most appropriate learning theory, the degree of cognitive processing required of the learner by the specific task appears to be a critical factor. For tasks requiring a low degree of processing, you can apply behaviorism approach, where for tasks requiring a low degree of processing could be facilitated by strategies most frequently associated with a behavioral outlook. Next, for tasks requiring an increased level of processing, you can apply cognitivism approach. For tasks requiring an increased level of processing are primarily associated with strategies having a stronger cognitive emphasis. And for tasks demanding high levels of processing, you can apply constructivism approach. For tasks demanding high levels of processing or higher order thinking skills or HOTS, are frequently best learned with strategies advanced by the constructivist perspective that involve like the strategy of reflection, seminars, discussion forum, small group work, inquiry and solving real-life problems, problem-based learning, project-based learning, online collaborative learning, and even flipped learning. As a suggestion, according to the degree of cognitive processing required, for instance, at the primary school level, you can apply the combination of 70% from the behaviorism approach and 30% from the cognitivism approach. Or you can also try a combination of 60% behaviorism, 30% cognitivism, and only 10% constructivism. Next, again, according to the degree of cognitive processing required, as a suggestion for the secondary school level, you can combine 30% behaviorism, 40% cognitivism, and 30% constructivism. The focus is more on cognitivism approach. And finally, the suggestion for the undergraduate level, you can combine 10% of behaviorism, 30% cognitivism, and 60% constructivism. The focus is more towards the constructivism approach. So, is there one best learning theory? One of the possible answers is that there is no one best learning theory. It depends on the existing knowledge and background of learners. As sometimes instructors are dealing with a big group of learners, or at least more than one learner, and different learners have different learning preferences or background. Perhaps using different strategies from each theory could be a better implementation to maximize learning outcome. Other relevant opinion and argument is that there is no one exact best learning theory, since each theory can be used in tackling certain learning categories. The theories rely on each other upon delivering the knowledge. For instance, behaviorism might be best in introducing the basic knowledge, and it is suitable for the young learners. Meanwhile, the cognitivism helps the learners in organizing the knowledge. And lastly, the constructivism is mostly used for the adult learners, where they can already do their own reasoning and analyzing. Hence, there is no one best learning theory, since all of them can be best used in different circumstances. The critical question instructional designers must ask is that not which is the best theory, but which theory is the most effective in fostering mastery of specific tasks. I hope that you can now see the differences between these three learning theories and how to differentiate them. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention.